So next I'm going to talk about open space because it fits with the street networks we were looking at before, and we can keep the same model, which is handy. And helpfully we have open space here and here. And open space should really integrate into the movement network. And here, this part, the market square, is probably the busiest part of the movement network. It's the most connected, so it will probably have most people going through it. Here, the open space is much quieter because it's not as connected, so that really impacts on the character of the open space. Take these two examples here. We've got one green area that's in the movement network, and we have one that's entirely isolated with one access. That will be far quieter. Which would you put a coffee shop on? Well, it probably wouldn't trade very well in the one with one access, but the one that's in the movement network, the coffee shop would probably trade far better in. And that characteristic of how open space fits into this place is really important at one level, but at the next level we have to look at the actual detail of how it integrates. So take this estate in Southwark. This is where we were earlier with that model in that first video, and what we have is the street. We have a wall to keep people out of this green strip, and then we have at the other side of the green strip a barrier at the edge of the flat to keep people from moving from the flat to the green space. Well, what purpose does that serve? We've put defensive barriers at each side. It would actually work far better if the flat had a little door, that was its main door perhaps, and an area of private space which led across that area to the street. It would actually serve a purpose then. What we have done instead is design something akin to the defences around a castle. So here's the English Heritage website. We can see a mock-up of a castle, and you have defences, walls, earthworks, a moat, all designed to keep people out, and then we funnel people to a narrow path to make it easy to attack them essentially when they go in that one route to the castle. And let's go around the back of this scheme in Southwark, and what do we see? The main entrance into the building, hidden around the back, and everybody's funneled off into one narrow access via railings, kept off the open space. And again, we've got the open space fenced off from the flats. We've got one person desperately trying to bring life into that open space. They've put plants around their balcony, but they've got to climb over the balcony to get into that open space. It just doesn't work very well because the whole thing is designed to keep people out with all these barriers. And this is really common. Here's another estate in, I think it's in Lewisham, where we've got a very large area of flat green open space, and all the way around it we've got 6-foot high railings and a prison type fence. At one side we've got flats, again they're kept out of it. The thing's locked. What purpose does it serve? Even in new developments here, this is Greenwich facing the Thames. We've got brick planters 3 foot high, quite expensive to build, put grass on top. Then the signs, keep off the grass. You know, why? Are the landmines in there? What's the point of the open space if you can't use the green space in it? Here's another example. This is a really well-designed scheme. We've got houses. Each house has got a front door facing the street. It's got some private space, and we've got open space facing that, but we've got a barrier between the two to stop life spreading from one to the other. What's the point of that barrier? It serves no purpose other than to keep people from using that open space. So when we design these open spaces, we've got to think about where they fit in the structure, but also that detail. Don't design them so there's barriers to keep people out. Always make sure that the open space faces the front of the building and life can spread out from the front of that building. And the next thing that matters is size of that space. With open space, bigger isn't necessarily better. Think of the market square. It doesn't matter where you are in Europe, the old market square and the old market town is probably about the size of a football pitch, 80 to 100 metres long. It's the size that people feel comfortable in. It's a size of space that people can see what's happening at a distance. It's easy to activate. Whereas if you go to big modernist places, here we've got Brasilia, we've got an absolutely massive area of open space in the centre, completely cuts the space in two. You essentially have to drive from one side to the other. It just doesn't work. Whereas actually places that keep it simple work far better. And this is a really good example of that. This is a scheme which was proposed to have a really expensive water feature in the middle to cut the place in two, a bit like in the Barbican. Presumably for budgetary reasons it didn't happen, and what we have is a whole series of trees, some hard surfacing, earth mounds with grass on, and what do we get? Life. Life spreads out to it. Life spreads out from the buildings and uses it. So when designing open space, the devil really is in the detail. It's not in the dollar because actually if you make it integrated, you don't design it defensively, you can actually design it fairly cheaply and it works really, really well.